Canadian winters have a way of slowing time, stretching ordinary moments into something quieter, sharper. I was sitting by the window of my condo in Calgary, watching a thin veil of snow drift past the glass, when my phone lit up with a video call from my daughter, Mia. The screen filled with her excited grin before I even had the chance to say hello. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. Dad, wait till you see this, she said, flipping the camera to show a panoramic view of a luxury lounge, complete with champagne glasses and glossy marble floors. I leaned back in my armchair. Looks fancy. Where are you two headed? To Whistler. Her voice bubbled with energy so bright it almost hid the nerves underneath. Logan booked us a week at the Skyline Summit Resort, the penthouse. Dad, the one with the panoramic mountain jacuzzi. And we're doing a helicopter tour over the Rockies. Snow spa therapy. Fine dining. Everything. She said it all in a rush, as if reading a brochure out loud. I smiled. The kind a father learns after years of trying to hide worry from his children. That must cost a fortune. Oh, it's nothing, she said too quickly. Logan closed a big deal last month. And you know, I've been saving from my content sponsorships. Her hand brushed her hair behind her ear, her tell. She did it every time she said something untrue, even at 5 years old, when she'd blamed a broken vase on the wind. Really now, I asked lightly, what kind of deal did Logan close? He'll tell you later, she said, eyes darting off screen. Anyway, we board in 20 minutes. I can't wait to show you the suite. It's the trip of a lifetime. Her enthusiasm was real. Too real. And beneath it was something else, an edge of defensiveness that didn't belong in a simple vacation announcement. I'd spent decades studying bridge structures, reading the barely visible stress lines that warned of collapse. And that same intuition whispered in the back of my mind now. There was a crack in her story. I didn't push. I never did. Mia had always been the child who lived in big dreams. Big gestuurs. Big wants. And I had always been the father who gave, without checking the bill. Enjoy your flight, sweetheart, I said gently. Show me the mountains when you land. We will love you. Dad, she blew a kiss to the camera. Then the call ended. The condo felt strangely quiet after her voice disappeared. Outside, snow pressed against the glass like a soft white curtain. I wrapped my fingers around my mug, letting the heat soak into my palms. A week in the most expensive resort in Whistler, a hélicoptère tour, a penthouse jacuzzi overlooking the Rockies, and 2 young adults who could barely cover their rent. Something didn't add up, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the unmistakable pull of a truth I didn't want to discover. But the moment the call ended, the condo fell into a silence that felt heavier than the snowfall outside. And that silence, it told me more truth than Mia's entire story had. I stayed there for a while, fingers wrapped around my cooling mug, staring at the faint reflection of my own face in the window. There's a certain clarity that only comes when you've lived long enough to recognize patterns, especially the kind you desperately wish weren't repeating. And this felt like one of them. I stood, stretched my stiff back, and walked toward my kitchen island. Mia's voice still echoed in my head, too bright, too rehearsed. Logan's big deal, her sudden sponsorship savings, the rushed goodbye, all flimsy details wrapped in glitter and speed. I'd heard versions of that tone before. Whenever Mia wanted something she couldn't afford, whenever Logan wanted something I could afford, but I pushed the thought away. I didn't want to assume the worst, not yet. I tried to distract myself. I washed a couple of dishes, watered the fern near the window, fed Jasper, my old tabby cat, who purred against my leg as if sensing my unease. Every small task gave me a momentary anchor, but the suspicion kept resurfacing, stubborn as winter ice. Be late afternoon. I found myself sitting at my desk with my laptop open, not because I planned to check anything, but because I couldn't stop myself. My cursor hovered over my online banking tab. I didn't click. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back, letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I kept replaying that moment when Mia mentioned the penthouse jacuzzi. Her eyes had flickered to the side just for half a second, but long enough for a father to notice. The same flicker she had when she was little and claimed she didn't finish the last cookie. The same flicker she had as a teenager when she said the dent in her car was already there. It wasn't the lie itself. It was the ease of it. The sky outside was turning a deep Alberta blue when my phone buzzed. Again, a text from Mia boarding now. Can't wait to show you everything. I typed back a smiley face and a simple, have fun. Then, finally, I clicked the banking tab. The screen loaded slowly, painfully, like it already knew I wasn't going to like what I saw. But before any numbers appeared, I whispered to myself, almost as if giving one last warning, please. Mia, tell me I'm wrong. A second later, the balance refreshed, and I understood with a cold, sinking certainty that I hadn't been wrong at all. The numbers hit me like a blast of cold prairie wind. I stared at the screen, waiting for my eyes to adjust, waiting for the shock to soften anything to convince myself I was misreading it. But transactions don't lie. They sit there in stark, unforgiving text, indifferent to whatever story you wish they told. And the story mine told was unmistakable. WestJet Airlines, ENA, 894 CAD Skyline Summit Resort, Char. 320 CAD North Peak Helicopter Tours. 575 CAD Tesla Rentals. 960 CAD Glacier Blue Spa. 680 CAD The Silver Birch Restaurant. 540 CAD one after another. Each one time-stamped within the last 48 hours. Each one charged to my visa. The visa that was supposed to be for emergencies only. The visa I'd given Mia when she moved to Vancouver, just until she got on her feet. The visa I'd stopped checking. Because trusting your child is supposed to be the default setting of a parent's heart. I felt something inside me, harden, not anger yet, but the heavy, immovable weight of truth settling into place. It wasn't a hacked card. It wasn't an accident. And it definitely wasn't saved up sponsorship money. This was intentional. I closed my laptop, but the silence of the condo seemed to echo the numbers back at me. The soft hum of the heater, the faint rattle of branches against the window, it all blended into the steady drumbeat of a father realizing he'd been played. Not by strangers. By his daughter. I stood up, pacing the living room, my socks whispering across the hardwood floor. A part of me wanted to call her immediately to demand an explanation she would undoubtedly coat in sugar and excuses. Another part wanted to wait, gather myself, think clearly. So I chose stillness. I sat back down, and I forced myself to breathe. I reopened the laptop, this time scrolling further down, months further. With every page, my hope shrank a little more. Restaurant bills in Vancouver. On nights, she told me she was cooking at home. Online luxury boutique. When she'd claimed she was saving aggressively. Hotel charges, even though she supposedly stayed with friends. Small amounts at first. Then bigger again. A pattern as clear as a set of blueprints. She hadn't just slipped. She'd been sliding for months. By the time I leaned back in my chair, my chest felt tight, not with rage, but with a kind of grief so heavy it made my ribs ache. Because there's one truth no parent ever wants to face. The moment you realize your child sees you not as a person, but as a resource. I rubbed my forehead and whispered into the quiet room, "Mia, what happened to you?" But the only answer was the wind outside, brushing against the window as if urging me toward the decision I already knew I had to make. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at those numbers. Minutes, maybe an hour. Time has a strange way of losing meaning when disappointment crawls under your skin. But eventually, the numbness gave way to something sharper clarity. I couldn't sit with this alone any longer. I needed to hear her voice, not the cheerful, glitter-covered version from earlier, but the real one, the voice she used when she wasn't performing. So I picked up my phone. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Dad, you okay?" Mia's voice was bright, breathless. I could hear airport chatter behind her. "Did you see my text? We just landed in Kelowna for our connection. The mountains look unreal." Her happiness twisted something in my chest. Not because she didn't deserve to be happy, but because she was building that happiness on lies she didn't bother hiding anymore. I kept my tone calm. "Mia, I need to ask you something important." A tiny hitch in her breathing, so small most people would miss it. But I didn't. "Sure, Dad," she said lightly. "What's up? Are you using my Visa card for this trip?" The silence that followed wasn't loud. It was delicate, fragile, the kind of silence that tells you the next sentence will decide the direction of an entire relationship. Then she laughed too quickly, too rehearsed. "Dad." "No, what? Why would I do that? I told you, Logan paid, and some of it was sponsored. You know, partnerships and stuff." Her voice lifted at the Ender classic. "Please believe this tone." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "I'm looking at my statement right now. Mia, the charges are all here. Flights, resort, Tesla, hélicoptère tour." Another pause, longer this time. The airport hum blurred behind her like a fading soundtrack. "Okay, maybe there's a mistake," she said finally. "Maybe the hotel charged your card accidentally, or Logan mixed up his wallet, or Dad. Honestly, this is stressing me out. Can we talk later? I'm supposed to be relaxing." The audacity of that word relaxing hit me like ice water. "Mia," I said quietly, "look me in the eye and tell me you didn't make these charges." There was no airport noise now, just breathing, soft, uneven. "Dad," she whispered, "you're overreacting." Overreacting. The same word she used at 16 when she crashed the second car I bought her. The same word she used at 23 when she overdrew her accounts for the 3rd time. A familiar script. A familiar role. A familiar expectation Dad will forgive this too. But this time, the script felt wrong. Worn out. Unacceptably. "No," I said softly. "I'm reacting exactly the way a father should when he realizes his daughter is lying to him." Her breath caught sharp, like a glass cracking under pressure. "Dad," pleases, but I'd heard enough. "Enjoy your flight, Mia," I said, my voice steady in a way it hadn't been in years. "We'll talk when you land." And for the first time, I ended the call first. When the call ended, I didn't feel the righteous satisfaction I expected. No anger, no triumph, just a heavy, hollow ache, the kind that settles deep, like cold air trapped in old bones. I set my phone down and leaned forward, elbows on my knees, letting the silence absorb the sting of Mia's last breathless plea. I'd heard that tone before, fear wrapped in manipulation, guilt painted with just enough sweetness to pass for innocence. It made me wonder when exactly my daughter learned to speak to me that way. I stood and walked to the bookshelf where I kept the heavy, leather-bound albums dusty relics of birthdays, graduations, holidays. I pulled one out and opened it on the dining table. There she was, Mia, at 3 years old, wearing a red snowsuit too big for her, arms stretched toward me, cheeks pink from the cold. Then at 9, holding a gold trophy from her winter skating recital. At 16, posing beside the brand new car she'd begged for the one she totaled 6 months later. Her smile never changed. But I flipped the pages, tracing each picture with my thumb, each memory, a reminder of when giving felt like joy, not obligation. Then, off to the side, separated from Mia's albums, was a thinner binder. Ethan's! I hesitated before opening it, almost ashamed of the contrast I knew I'd find. Ethan, at 7, holding a hockey stick duct taped together because he refused to let me buy a new one. At 8, grinning in his thrift store suit for prom. At 23, hugging me after fixing my old snowblower, refusing to take money for the 3 hours he spent in the cold. A small, tight smile tugged at my mouth. Ethan asked for so little, and Mia asked without asking at all. After a moment, I returned to my desk and opened a spreadsheet I hadn't touched in years. It listed every major expense I'd covered for both children. I scrolled through the columns, the numbers rising like tides. For Mia, university in Toronto, 2 cars, 3 apartment deposits, countless bills, covered just for the month, cameras, laptops, editing gear, weekend trips, emergency money that never stopped being emergency money. The total made my stomach twist. For Ethan, 1 small loan for a car repair, a plane ticket home when his mother fell ill, half of his wedding contribution because he insisted on paying the other half. He'd even paid interest on that car loan. Who pays interest to their own father? I closed my eyes, pressing my fingertips to my temples. Maybe the real mistake wasn't Mia's lie. Maybe it was mine believing I could love a child into becoming responsible by cushioning every fall, fixing every mess, covering every cost. I looked back at Mia's pictures, the girl with bright eyes and outstretched hands. Somewhere along the way, those hands stopped reaching for me and started reaching for my wallet. A cold realization settled in my chest. If I didn't stop this cycle now, Mia would never stop herself. I stared at the albums for a long moment, the weight of them pressing against my chest like a truth I'd avoided for years. In those pages, I saw 2 different childhoods, one earned, one indulged. And in the present, I was finally seeing the result. Something inside me shifted. Not broken, not angry, just done. Done pretending this was normal. Done cleaning her messes. Done being the safety net she'd mistaken for a trampoline. When I stood, it was with a clarity so sharp it almost steadied me. I walked back to my desk, opened my laptop, and pulled up the reservation details Mia had unknowingly left in my statements. The Skyline Summit Resort confirmation number sat there, bold and mocking. My cursor hovered for a breath. Then I clicked the resort's number. Skyline Summit Resort. This is Amelia speaking. Good evening, I said calmly. I need to cancel a reservation under the name Mia Harrington. Penthouse suite. One moment. Sir, yes, I see it. However, the penthouse has a strict non-refundable dog. That's fine. Cancel it. There was a pause. You're certain? Sir, I looked out the window at the falling snow, a quiet, determined snowfall that didn't ask for permission to cover everything it touched. I'm certain. She processed it quickly. Done. A confirmation email has been sent. I thanked her, hung up, and moved on to the next. North Peak helicopter tours, Tesla rentals, Glacier Blue Spa, dinner reservations, ski pass, private cabana rental on the summit terrace. Every luxury Mia had lined up with my stolen money disappeared one call at a time. Police employees, scripted apologies, cancellation fees, each click, each confirmation, each. Is there anything else we can help you with? Carved away another layer of the illusion Mia had built. This wasn't revenge. Not really. This was gravity. Consequences falling exactly where they belonged. When the last cancellation email arrived, I opened the banking portal one more time and navigated to Authorized Users. Remove user Mia Harrington. The system asked for confirmation. I clicked yes. A surprisingly quiet moment followed no triumph. Nah, vindication. Just the soft hum of the heater and Jasper curling at my feet, purring as if he approved. I closed my laptop, poured myself a small glass of rye, and sat by the window, watching the snow blanket, the streets. For the first time in years, my mind felt still. Mia would land in Whistler, expecting luxury, expecting indulgence, expecting the world she believed she deserved. Instead, she'd find nothing waiting for her. No penthouse, no car, no tour, no endless wallet to catch her fall. And for the first time in her adult life, she would have to stand on her own 2 feet. I took a sip of rye and whispered to the quiet room, if she wants independence so badly, she can start now. By the time I finished my drink, the snow outside had thickened into a quiet, white curtain. There was something poetic about it, how the world could be so peaceful even when someone else's world was about to unravel. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my bedroom in thin golden stripes. For a long moment, I just lay there, listening to the faint hum of the heater and the soft purr of Jasper curled near my feet. No alarms, no tension, just stillness. Then my phone lit up. 7 missed calls. All from Mia. I let out a slow breath. So it had begun. By the time I brewed my coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the phone rang again, this time vibrating violently across the wood, as if the urgency alone could force me to answer. I picked up. Dad. Her voice was a shaky mix of anger, panic, and disbelief. The hotel says we don't have a reservation. They said everything was canceled. They're claiming you called them. I kept my tone calm, almost gentle. That's strange. Strange, she snapped. We've been standing in line for an hour with our luggage because the front desk refused to check us in. I sipped my coffee. Did you try calling Logan? I did. His phone died. And the Tesla rental says there's no record of our booking. And the helicopter tour, Dad. They said the cardholder canceled it. Why would they think the cardholder was involved? I let the silence stretch just enough for her to feel it. Maybe, I said finally. Because the cardholder was involved. Her breath hitched. Sharp and short. You didn't? I did. For a moment. There was nothing but wind in the background. Whistler's distant winter gusts rushing past the phone like a warning. Dad. How could you? She choked. This was supposed to be our anniversary trip. And now we're stuck in some disgusting roadside motel near Pemberton. There are stains on the carpet. Logan is furious. Everything is ruined. And none of it, I said quietly, should have been paid for with my stolen card. It wasn't stealing, her voice cracked. It was temporary. I was going to pay you back. With what salary? Mia, your part-time content gigs or Logan's big deal that never existed. She fell silent again. Then the tone shifted soft, trembling. Familiar. Dad, please. You embarrassed me. You humiliated us. You made us look stupid. No, I said, my voice low but steady. I simply stopped funding the illusion. She sniffed, her composure slipping. I can't believe you did this. I can't believe you made me have to. Another long silence. Then, barely above a whisper, Dad, what am I supposed to do now? I stared out at the snow-covered yard. Sunlight gleaming off the frost like a quiet answer. Figure it out, I said softly, just like adults do. And for the second time in this story, I ended the call first. After I ended the call, the condo fell quiet, again too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel the weight of everything you've just done. I sat there for a few seconds, fingers wrapped around my coffee mug, letting the warmth ground me. But peace never lasts long when people like Mia feel cornered. The first notification came 10 minutes later. Then another, and another. Ping, ping, ping. By the time I checked my phone, I had dozens of tags, mentions, and messages from numbers I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened, not out of fear, but out of the certainty that I already knew what I'd find. I opened Instagram. Mia's face filled the screen, teary. Mascara smuged. Lips trembling in perfectly practiced anguish. Behind her was the unmistakable gloom of a budget roadside motel. She looked directly into the camera, with a wounded expression I'd never seen outside of childhood tantrums. Sometimes, she began, voice cracking with theatrical fragility. The people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who destroy you. I closed my eyes for a moment. Exhaling slowly, she continued. My father sabotaged our trip. He called our hotel and pretended there were issues with my card because he couldn't stand the idea of me being independent. He canceled our reservations out of spite. He wanted to punish me. Comments poured in beneath her story. Toxic parents are the worst. Cut him off. Girl. Emotional manipulation is abuse. Stay safe. What kind of father does this? I scrolled to the next story. Mia held up the motel room key, zooming in on a peeling door frame. This is where he forced us to stay. A filthy, horrible place. He doesn't want me to be happy. He's always been controlling. Always using money to guilt-trip me. A bitter laugh escaped me soft. Humorless. Controlling, I'd spent 28 years saying yes to everything she asked for. And the one time I said no, well, the world now had to hear about my tyranny. The next story was worse. A long block of text on a black screen. Growing up with a father who dangles money over your head is torture. You never feel safe. Never feel loved. Everything is conditional. Conditional. The words sank into me like a dull blade. Funny how people twist the meaning of boundaries when those boundaries finally touch them. I kept watching. She posted a photo of herself crying in Logan's arms. A clip of the motel bathroom light flickering. A dramatic close-up of her blotchy face. Caption, I deserve better. No daughter should be treated this way. My phone buzzed again, strangers sending me hateful messages. People I'd never met, lecturing me about parenting. My reputation, built quietly over decades, dismantled in 15 minutes by a woman who'd stolen from me and felt entitled to steal more. I put the phone down on the table, letting it vibrate uselessly. For a moment, a wave of sadness washed over me, not because of what she'd said, but because she believed any of it could make her right. Then the sadness hardened, not into anger, into resolve. If Mia wanted to paint me as the villain, then she was about to learn what happens when the villain finally tells the truth. I let the phone buzz on the table until it finally went still. The apartment was quiet again. But the peace from earlier was gone, replaced by a cold clarity settling deep in my chest. A line had been crossed. Not lightly, not impulsively, But deliberately, Mia hadn't just lied to me. She hadn't just stolen from me. She had weaponized the world against me, turning strangers into soldiers in a war I never asked for. And suddenly, something inside me clicked into place. Maybe for the first time in my life, I realized Mia didn't need another rescue. She needed consequences. Real ones. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and ignored the phone buzzing again as I left the condo. The Calgary air slapped my face the moment I stepped outside. Sharp, clean, bracing. The kind of cold that forces you awake, makes every thought brighter. By the time I reached my car, the decision was fully formed. If Mia wanted independence so badly, I was about to give it to her in its purest, most unforgiving form. Jim Henderson had been my lawyer for nearly 10 years. Sharp mind, steady voice. A man who never rushed judgment. When I called and told him I needed to see him immediately, he didn't ask questions. He just said, "Come in." 30 minutes later, I walked into his oak-paneled office, carrying a folder stuffed with printed bank statements, screenshots from Mia's stories, and notes I'd scribbled during the sleepless months. Before all this, Jim stood when I entered. "Owen, you look determined." "I am," I replied, taking a seat across from him. "I need to restructure my estate plan." He folded his hands. "All right. Tell me what's happened." I laid the evidence out on his desk. Every unauthorized charge. Every lie. Every post painting me as a monster. Jim read through it slowly, his expression darkening with each page. When he finally looked up, he leaned back in his chair. "You've been more than generous with her." "I've been enabling her," I corrected softly. "I built this." Every time she fell, I cushioned the impact. Every time she messed up, I erased the consequences. I thought love meant shielding her from pain. And now she believes she's entitled to everything I've ever worked for and justified in destroying me when I say no. Jim nodded. "So what do you want to do?" I didn't hesitate. "I want to remove Mia from my will. Completely. And I want the trust fund, every cent earmarked for her, transferred to Ethan instead." Jim raised an eyebrow. "Are you certain these are irreversible changes?" "I'm certain," I said. "Ethan's lived his whole life with integrity. He's never expected a handout. He's earned what Mia assumed she deserved." Jim pulled out the paperwork. "Then let's get started." As I signed my name across page after page, a strange sensation washed over me. Not triumph. Not vengeance, but relief. For the first time in 28 years, I wasn't saving Mia. I was saving myself. And maybe, just maybe, giving her the only chance she had left to grow. When I left Jim's office, the winter sun was already slipping behind Calgary's skyline, casting long shadows across the snow-covered streets. For the first time in years, those shadows didn't feel heavy. They felt earned. I had done something I should have done long ago. Drawn a line. A real one. I drove home in silence, the heater humming softly as the city lights flickered past the windshield. My phone buzzed a few times, but I didn't check it. I already knew it was Mia, or Logan, or maybe both. It didn't matter. I had spent decades letting their urgency become mine. Not anymore. The knock came the following afternoon. Sharp, heavy, angry. I opened the door to find Mia standing on my porch, cheeks flushed from the cold or fury, and Logan looming behind her, jaw tight, fists clenched like he was ready to solve this with intimidation instead of words. "Owen, we need to talk," he said, pushing past me as if he owned the place. "No," I replied, blocking the doorway with my arm. You can wait outside. Logan scoffed. You messed with our lives. You ruined everything. I protected what's mine, I said calmly. Mia's eyes were red and swollen. She shoved a stack of papers toward me, copies of the legal notice. You cut me out of everything, she whispered. Everything. Dad? How could you do this to your own daughter? Her voice cracked. And for a moment, I'll admit something inside me softened. But then I remembered the lies. The theft. The public humiliation. The motel video. The comments calling me abusive. Strangers spitting venom at a father they'd never met. Logan stepped forward. You're going to call your lawyer and fix this. Today. No. I'm not. Owen. He growled. You don't want to make this any uglier. Before I could answer, my neighbor, Mr. Donnelly, an old retired RCMP officer, stepped onto his porch. Everything all right here? He asked. Logan froze. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't posture. Didn't threaten. I simply looked him in the eyes and said, if you step 1 foot inside my house, I'll let him call the police, and you will answer for every threat you've made. The fight drained out of Logan faster than the warmth in winter air. Mia tugged at his sleeve, her bravado unraveling. Let's just go, she whispered. He glared at me one last time, but he left. Mia lingered. Dad, her voice was small, tremoring. I didn't think you'd ever stop choosing me. I swallowed hard. I didn't stop choosing you. Mia, I stopped choosing the version of you that hurts people and expects applause. A tear slid down her cheek, freezing halfway in the January wind. I closed the door gently, not angrily, not triumphantly, just finally. As I stood alone in the quiet afterward, I realized something simple but painfully true. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's permission, and I had given too much permission for too many years. If Mia ever came back as the woman she could be, not the one she had been, I would welcome her with open arms. But until then, the door to my home would remain closed, and the door to her consequences would finally remain open. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.